2 years old though. It's like 2.5.
Oh my god! What did you get? Did in that half a year? Did your brain
Yeah.
like
Everybody,
eclipse?
Swagkage here, and today I'm going to be following up on a promise I made, I don't even know how long ago, honestly, to talk about Shisui in one of these How Strong Is videos. This guy
Bro,
is surprisingly
the difference in cadence is night and day.
Night and day, yeah.
This shit is so much better.
popular,
Oh my
despite
god.
the fact that he doesn't appear in the series at all outside of flashbacks. And even in those flashbacks, he doesn't do a whole lot. But I do kind of get it. He is really cool in the Storm games, at least. And whenever one of the characters mentions him,
This
it's
is where all the
usually to
scaling
talk about
comes
how
from.
much of a sick, nasty
Every
ninja
single
he
bit of
was.
this
The
nigga's
thing he gets
perception
the
comes
most
from
hype
these
for,
fucking
as I'm
games.
sure many of you are already aware, is his unique Mangekyo Sharingan power, Kodo Amatsukami. One
Appreciate
thing that's
the
worth
five,
noting
Anthony.
is that as far as we know, Shisui is actually the only character to have the same jutsu in both eyes. The same almost applies to Obito, but even though both of his Mangekyo abilities have the same name, they do function in distinctly different ways. One is meant to be used at long range, and the other is meant to be used at short range.
Hey, to be fair, I discovered that Shisui does have two different Kodos.
Chisui's Mangekyo seem to be functionally identical, though it is hard to say for sure since we've only seen each one used once or twice. In any case, Kodo Amatsukami
Did everyone
is
not
really,
think
really
that
powerful,
already?
one of the most powerful genjutsu in the whole series. It doesn't physically damage people like, say, Tsukuyomi
A lot of people
or
thought the
Frog
two
Song,
eyes were
but
the
it
same.
instead places them under mind control. Shisui can basically get people to do whatever he wants with this jutsu, and the crazy thing is he doesn't even have to establish eye contact to do it. What's even more ridiculous is that the target of the jutsu typically isn't aware of what's happening to them, and unless they're told otherwise, will fully believe that they're making these decisions themselves. The big thing about Kodo Amatsukami, though, is despite all of these really, really good upsides, Shisui can only use it once every 10 years. Or I guess it would be more accurate to say he can use it twice every 10 years, since he does have two Sharingan. But that's still really sucks. Now, it may not be strictly true depending on how we interpret a few
Oh my god,
things,
this
but
beat
do
goes
bear
crazy.
in mind that none of what I'm about to say is set in stone. We are now entering the theory zone.
I forgot I did this
So
stupid
at
shit.
the 5Kage Summit, when Ao catches Donzo manipulating
It's actually kind of cold.
How you feel about Matt Pat?
Who the fuck is that?
Game theory, bro. This dude.
So at
Yeah,
the 5
okay,
Kage
videos, I
Summit,
guess.
when Ao catches
Fucking,
Donzo
what,
manipulating,
I watched them when I was a
he
kid.
says a
Very
few
long
things
ago,
about
yeah, very long
Shisui and
ago.
briefly explains how Kodo Amatsukami works. The thing about this is, like, how would Ao know any of this? He does straight up say that he and Shisui fought before. And, like, sure, but how does he know enough about Kodo Amatsukami, a jutsu whose strength primarily lies in the fact that nobody knows it's even being used in the first place, to explain it to a room full of people if Shisui can only cast it once every 10 years? Now, I'm not
Swag.
saying this is a plot hole or anything, don't worry, just give me a second. Remember how at the beginning of the video I mentioned Shisui was kind of a special case because he's like the only Uchiha who has the same Mangekyo power in both eyes? Well, it is actually very possible that he's another Obito situation where both jutsu have the same name but function in ways that are slightly different. There actually do seem to be a few key differences between the one Shisui gave to Itachi and the one Danzo stole, and one of these is actually pretty noticeable. When Danzo used it to control Mifune,
Why are you
obviously
bringing
he
this
was
up?
able to do it without establishing eye contact, but Itachi
Well, because I mean, how Kodo functions is pretty important.
No, I mean, like,
clearly looked Itachi in the eye
why'd you
past.
bring the owl one up? Why'd you bring owl up?
Oh, because how would Al know? It was like to sell the idea that Shisui might have one that he can use more than once every 10 years. Because
Oh.
how else would Al know how it works?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Something else worth pointing out is that Mifune seemed to snap out of Danzo's control completely as soon as everybody pointed out to him that he was being manipulated. Itachi, meanwhile, knew the entire time that he was being controlled, explained to Naruto exactly how the genjutsu worked, and still never snapped out of it. The final difference is that despite Itachi's claims that the jutsu can only be used once every 10 years, Danzo claims he can use it multiple times in a single day. And this is partially explained by the fact that Danzo's body has been fortified by Hashirama's DNA and chakra, but it could also be explained by functional differences between both eyes. Now, whether you agree with this interpretation or not should affect how strong you think Shisui is, but it probably isn't true, or I at least think that it's safe to proceed under the assumption that it probably isn't true, since there's nothing in the series that indicates this aside from the bits and pieces of circumstantial evidence that I mentioned already. Now, let's move out of the theory zone and return to talking strictly about things we know for sure. Regardless of the presence of any functional differences between Shisui's eyes, there is something I feel pretty confident.
Why are you
Contrary to what I
using
believe is a
Japanese
very popular opinion,
scans?
this jutsu probably isn't the win button that many people seem to think it is. Now, I
This
get
was
it.
before there were English translations of the color scans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because based on what we know, you could make a fairly strong argument in favor of this being all Shisui needs to do to win a fight, but it doesn't appear to be something that Shisui can do instantly. I say this because he didn't use it to stop Danzo from taking one of his Sharingan, and we know he had at least one charge left at this point because he was planning on using Kodo Matsukami to stop the Uchiha coup altogether. I guess you could maybe argue that he really wanted to save the jutsu for Fugaku, but Shisui's smart enough to know that Danzo reaching for one of his eyes means he's probably about to lose it, so the only explanation that leaves us with is that he didn't have enough time to cast it. So this should mean that against really, really fast characters like Minato, he shouldn't be able to cast the jutsu and just win the fight for free. Even if you get
W.
that doesn't change anything for fights where we assume Shisui is in character. Against somebody like, again, Minato, he'd just end up waiting too long to use it.
Bro,
Probably
two people at the same time in chat said Swag Shapiro because of me speaking fast. That's funny as fuck.
Speaking of his encounter with Danzo, by the way, there are actually a lot of different
Ben Kage
even uses the Susanoo, but I will go ahead and say right now that this is non-canon. Well, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that Shisui can use the Susanoo because
no, there's no way I threw up a picture of Nick Cannon when I called it non-canon. I'm gonna fucking backflip off of a bridge.
This is non-canon. Well, it's
What the fuck is wrong with me, bro? What was I doing?
You're too old for doing shit like
Sharingan, since we've never actually seen him do it in canon material, saying he can would be purely speculative. The Susanoo version of this scene is, if I had to rank them, probably the least authentic since it's from a game. There are two other interpretations, one from anime filler and one from a light novel, and this is the version.
Bro, the anime filler version of this? I mean, I've talked about this before, but it is so bad.
Danzo beat the shit out of Shisui in that filler. That he punched, didn't he punch him so hard he like started floating? That shit was crazy. Appreciate the 10,
Bro was
Waylon.
like coughing up his whole stomach.
What do you say? He said, love you guys, keep up the good work. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, €2. L6, we need to watch one of your vids too. Oh yeah, we know. It's just hard for niggas to choose.
Not very kind to him. In the light novel, though, Shisui doesn't lose to Danzo in a fair fight. He doesn't get his eye stolen because Danzo is faster or stronger than him, but instead because Danzo ordered a member of the Aburame clan to use its insects to afflict Shisui with the paralysis poison. Now, the reason this is good for Shisui isn't because it's necessarily impressive or anything, but instead because it means his loss to Danzo isn't indicative of his physical abilities. Shisui definitely gets a bad rap for being the guy who lost to Danzo, and what makes it even worse is that Danzo didn't have his Izanagi arm at the time they fought, so he would have been a lot easier to kill at this point than he was when he fought Sasuke. I'm sure I'm even guilty of pooping on Shisui for this in the past, and it's not really fair because, like I said, in the canon version of this fight, Shisui was totally paralyzed. He really couldn't do anything. But the problem with this is that now we don't really have any point of reference for how strong he is. We know he was stronger than Itachi, which a lot of people like to point out. It does sound pretty impressive until you consider that Itachi was 12 years old when Shisui died. And now, don't get me wrong, 12-year-old Itachi was no joke. But a lot of people seem to think that Shisui would be able to box with like full power, fully grown up adult Itachi, and that's just not true. Now, what is a little more impressive is that he and Itachi are some of the strongest members of the entire Uchiha clan. And I don't know if this is supposed to.
Damn, you're probably sitting there bricked up because I sat here and I debunked Shisui versus Minato and Shisui versus Itachi.
Hey,
in one video.
This is way better than Madara versus fucking Jubito.
Be in terms of like upward potential or just raw ability. I think the second one makes more sense based on the context in which this was said. But regardless, it's a little bit hard to extract anything from this because we don't know how strong the rest of the Uchiha clan was either. Before I go any further, I'd like to clarify that this was also said in reference to the members of the Uchiha clan who are currently alive.
Yo, Misery the Goat.
So Madara, Obito, Izuna, these sorts of people were not taken into account when this was said. So while we can't really look at any feats from the people that Itachi and Shisui
finished my final exams and finished my semester.
Itachi's father was considered for the position of Hokage.
You know,
Of course, he
that
wasn't
V's
actually
also
appointed,
tells
but that
Swagkage
very fact
said
upset
yellow.
a lot of people, specifically members of the
Yes,
Uchiha
sir.
clan. These people
That
thought
Sonic
Fugaku was
versus
perfectly capable
Shadow
and the right
video.
pick for the job, and saw the decision not to appoint him as a result of the clan's rocky relationship with the village's administration. Now, this narrative that he was cheated out of the position.
Yes, I do think
Sasuke
Sasuke's
let's
dead.
also consider that Minato and Orochimaru
After
were
the time
considered
skip.
for the position as well. For so many people to be so confident that Fugaku was more deserving of the seat of Hokage than either of them, you'd think Fugaku would have to be pretty strong. So if the statement about Shisui and Itachi is to be taken seriously, and they're both even more powerful than this, that would make Shisui Kage level at the bare minimum. This is somewhat supported by Obito's assessment of Itachi's strength when he joined the Akatsuki. Even at just 12 years old, Itachi was considered a rival to Obito by Obito himself, the same guy who fought Minato and tamed the Nine Tails. The only other thing we really know about Shisui is that he was supposed to be pretty fast, and that he seems to have been more well known for this than for the power of Kodo Matsukami. After all, his nickname was Shisui the Teleporter or Shisui of the Body Flicker, depending on your source, not Shisui of the Hypnotic Eye or whatever. There aren't a whole lot of Naruto characters with speed-based nicknames like this, so if we're being generous to him, it might even indicate that he was one of the fastest shinobi in the world. But realistically speaking, this doesn't tell us nearly as much as the other statements I went over. Anyway, that should cover everything important, but if I missed anything, feel free to let me know, and as always, thanks for watching. Till next time, talk to you later, and Merry Christmas. Swagkage out.
That was a good video.
This is W.